So, with that in mind, a couple years back, you were able to do a documentary about your life. So, with that in mind, where did the idea come from to be able to transcribe more of it into a book?
Okay. Well, I didn't put the documentary together. And can I curse?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, not that I like to. I was trying not to curse in 2020, but it's inevitable. So yeah, there was a documentary put together by Stone Films NYC. That's Drew Stone and our producer Alex. Drew approached me about doing a documentary of my life. We met at the Misfits in around 1998. He was managing a little band called Sub-Zero. Misfits were going to Spain. He wanted to know if Sub-Zero could open up. Jerry only said yes. So we all wound up going to Spain. All I ever remember about Spain is beers and drinking. Well, beers, drinking, fighting. That's all I remember. Fast forward, Drew and I wound up seeing each other at a Cro-Mags gig, and he wanted to set up a lunch, and he just thought my life was interesting, and he wanted to know if he could make a documentary about me. So I had never thought about that before, but then, my ego took over a little bit, and I thought, well, this sounds like an interesting idea. So we started the documentary on a very small Kickstarter budget, and it took almost 3 years, and I didn't, if we were going to spend all that time together, I didn't want it to be like a metal movie or just a music movie, because if you're going to start talking about my life, we need to talk about the music, the addiction, the recovery, the health issues, and that, I'm perfectly fine now. And it all, in talking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, which we have heard over and over again, it would have been a cliche if I died, but I didn't die. So it's okay to talk about all those things. And, the movie wound up coming out really good. And all the artists that I had worked with at different points in my career, John Lydon, Cyndi Lauper, Metallica, Rob Zombie, they all just said yes when Drew asked them if they wanted to participate in the film. And, that's like a blessing, and I'm so grateful that I was never on any kind of bad footing with any of those artists. Even when we all stopped working together, we still, either remained friends or, on a professional level, we were always professional with each other. So that came out, and the minute it went on Netflix in 2017, it went global, and people started freaking out, and they loved the film. Fast forward, it's 2020, about almost 3 years since the film's been out, and Netflix renewed us again till at least September 2020, and because they've got such great response to the movie. And not only that, it just got added to Amazon Prime Video, so people can see it in various places on demand and so on. The book came about because a little company called Backbeat Books, one word, Backbeat Books, approached me and wanted to know if I had more stories. And of course, you can't tell every single story in about 80 minutes. So you talk about the real highs and the real lows in the film, and so I did have more stories to tell, so I said yes, because I have a crazy scatterbrain and I remember only half of my life. An old friend of mine, Laura Davis Channon, helped me write the book. We gathered all of my journals from when I was growing up, from 15 to when I was like a minute ago, and so all those journals were very informative and kind of triggered my brain to write the book. I dictated a lot to Laura. She finessed a lot of things so that it would come out in my voice. And I don't know, that's how it all happened. And so now, so now the book's about to come out. It's called I Am Michael Alago, Breathing Music, Signing Metallica, Beating Death. It's available for pre-order on Amazon, and the street date is March 25th. How's that for a mouthful?
Oh, absolutely incredible.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, are we done? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Hello? Sarcasm. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's
all right.
threw me off
good.
completely. But
little humor. A little humor never hurt anyone.
Absolutely. And I was just gonna say, I mean, I love the fact that the documentary is in different places to be able to check out now. The fact that it is on Amazon Prime, that it did get renewed on to Netflix, and being able to see your life in all of these different formats. I mean, whether
Sure.
you're looking at the rise of all these different artists, whether you're looking in written form with this new book, or in a film. I mean, it's amazing to see that you have been a part of so many different works of art over the years now.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I've been a very hard worker my whole life, and thank God it proved to work out for me.
Yeah, and again, you know, it's just like when I was reading the book and just like seeing all these different stories about all these different people that you've been able to work with and everything that's been a part of your life. I mean, one thing that I truly do appreciate is the versatility that you have for what you enjoy in music. I mean, it's not just one thing that you like. You're able to help out so many other great musicians.
Well, you know, I started listening to music at a very young age. I watched a lot of, back then in the 70s, there was music television, like American Bandstand, Midnight Special, Soul Train. All of those stations had such a variety of music that was being played, from, you know, the Charlie Daniels Band to Todd Rundgren to David Bowie to Aretha Franklin to I don't know, tons of R&B artists. And that plus 77 WABC AM radio just informed my listening at a very, very young age. And that wide variety of music just kind of stuck with me. And I wound up just loving all sorts of music because I was able to hear a lot of different things at a young age. I don't know, is that what you just asked me?
Oh, yeah. Well, kind of going back and forth with that stream of consciousness, but yeah, I mean, I love the fact that you were able to grow up with all these different kinds of music and, you know, get other forms of music off the ground. I mean, of course, right on the title of the book, I mean, the fact that you were able to help Metallica reach mega stardom from where they were, and all these different other great heavy artists as well.
Sure. Well, you know, like I said, I loved all types of music. So in the 70s, I discovered a newspaper that came out weekly called The Village Voice. And in The Village Voice, there was music, art, theater, porn, and politics. I could have cared less about politics as a teenager, but I loved all those other things. And me and my friends were all just curious about music. So in that music section, it was the beginning of like punk rock, and CBGB was an extraordinary place, and Max's Kansas City was an incredible place up on Park Avenue South. And they also booked a wide variety of types of music, from Suicide and the Misfits to the Dead Boys. And at one point there was the British invasion of punk rock that came in, that Hilly Crystal, who owned CBGB's, brought into town, like X-Ray Specs, Eddie and the Hot Rods, Penetration, The Damned. One weekend there was The Damned and the Dead Boys opening up, and I was in heaven because I went all 3 nights, saw all of the sets, and like, to me, that was just exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be where the music was, and I knew I wanted to be in the music business, but I didn't play an instrument, and I didn't know what that meant to a teenager. Like, what does that mean, being in the music business? So I just continued to love music and go out and go to concerts and see everyone from Lou Reed and Todd Rundgren to Brian Ferry and Patti Smith and the Ramones and Suicide, one of my all-time favorite bands. And I just, like I said, I was just in love with music. And as I grew just a little older, I didn't have any other plan, and I was still determined to be in music by business, but I didn't know what that meant. So this is a little long-winded, but so we're going to fast forward to 1980. I was going to the School of Visual Arts. I was working in a pharmacy in the East Village. I was taking lunch one day, and I walked down East 11th Street. There was a beautiful Art Deco building there. It had been closed for a long time. It was a Spanish dance hall called Casa Galicia. So I saw a sign on the door that said video club opening. And me being the curious person that I am, I thought, oh, video club opening. Now keep in mind, it's 1980 and it's the very beginning of MTV. Okay, so I walk into the building and I'm looking around, and it's so beautiful because it's like everything, the design was 1920s Art Deco. There was a man in the balcony, and I always, like, I've been telling this story a lot recently, and I was like, it's like the Wizard of Oz. He was in the balcony, and he was like, kid, what do you want? And I said, well, there's a sign on the door that says video club opening. He said, well, do you have a resume? I said, no, I don't have a resume. I go to school, and I work part-time in a pharmacy. And he found some humor in that. I don't know what, but he found humor in it. So he invited me up to his office. His name is Jerry Brandt. I did not realize he was really this entrepreneur that used to work with Sam Cooke and Muhammad Ali and discovered Carly Simon. He had a club in the 60s called the Electric Circus that was also in the East Village on St. Mark's Place. And here I am talking to this man about music, all kinds of music, from the Great American Songbook from back in the day to what was going on in the New York underground scene and what was happening on radio. Well, we had a really great conversation, and at the end of that, he just said to me, you know, kid, I'm going to give you a job. You're going to open my mail, you're going to go get my lunch, and you're going to answer my phone. And I was in awe. I was like, in my head, I was saying, oh my God, I think I'm in the music business. And you know what? I was 19, and it was the beginning. It was the germ that, yes, I was in the music business. So I did all that stuff for Jerry, but I was like a sponge. I carefully listened to all of his phone calls. And all of his phone calls were with booking agents, talking to booking agents about artists that we were going to have at the club, the Ritz. Everybody knows it now as Webster Hall. And it holds about, I don't know, 1,500 seats or so. So I would very carefully listen to Jerry make deals with these booking agents. And about a year or so later, I got the knack of what was going on and how to speak to the agents and the kind of money that was being offered depending on a ticket price. And I did that for 3 years. And well, we're not really fast forwarding, so I did that for 3 years, and I kind of still thought there's more out there, but what's more? So I was going out with somebody named Mitchell, and he said to me, you know, my dad's leaving Warner Brothers, and he's going to restart Elektra Records. Elektra had been in the crapper with previous management, and Bob Krasnow was going to re-up Elektra. So Mitchell got me an interview with his father, and I met Bob, and we started talking. We had that same conversation that I had with Jerry Brandt. And if you don't know Jerry Brandt, Brandt is Brandt. I had that same conversation with Jerry. Bob and I talked again about the Great American Songbook, about contemporary music, but the added part of that conversation was that Bob was an art maven. So we started talking about the East Village art scene, everybody who was up and coming, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Keith Haring, Robert Longo, Richard Hambleton, all of these artists. And I think he was, and it's not like to toot my own horn or anything, but I think he was impressed that I knew about a wide variety of things as well. So we had our meeting, we shook hands, and he said, I'll give you a call. And so in about 2 weeks, he gave me a call, and he said, you know, Michael, I liked our interview, and I'm going to give you a job, and you're going to be in the A&R department. And I thought, wow, I'm going to work for a major corporation. The only thing was, I had no idea what A&R meant. So I had to ask friends of mine. They laughed in my face, and they said, Michael, A&R stands for Artist and Repertoire. Very soon, I learned that A&R is the most important department of a record company. If you don't have great artists and you don't have great records, you got nothing. And soon one would not have a job if you didn't know how to find great artists and make great records. So again, I was a sponge. I learned very quickly. Bob Krasnow, our chairman, was very kind to let me sit in on his phone calls with publishers, lawyers, managers, musicians. And again, I learned a lot from listening to Bob. And pretty soon Bob was telling all those people, go see Michael Alago, call Michael Alago. And I learned very quickly. It was like on-the-job training. period.
Yeah, I mean, that's just incredible. I mean, the fact that you were able to line up both of those interviews like that and just, just being yourself, being able to get your way from wanting to be in the music industry to being
Sure.
A&R to Electric Records and
Elektra, yes.
yeah, Elektra, yeah, and just all these things is just incredible. Just with the, just wanting to be a part of it and actually making that happen, just like putting that power forward to push yourself to do that.
Well, I always think that, that the universe provides. And if you have something that you are determined to do and you just have that focus, it could happen. And, I didn't plan on these meetings. They happened because I was curious, I was determined, and it was all about music. So once I had these interviews, I just put my best foot forward. I spoke about what I felt like I knew, and it impressed those two senior executives, and that's how I got my jobs. And, I wound up working at record companies for almost, 22, 23, 24 years. And it was magic. It was incredible. And it was the job that I didn't know I wanted specifically, but it was the job that I was meant to have.
And when you finally started getting your feet wet into it, and
Sure.
you were really starting to get into the A&R side, I mean, what did that start to feel like, knowing that you got that far, that you were finding this talent to be able to bring to Elektra?
Well, I was grateful. I was excited. I was young, and I got a corner office with a great view of I think it was down Fifth Avenue, and I put lots of art and photographs on my wall, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. This is really cool. So every day, my assistant Tony and I, at one point I had this woman named Tony Quirk, and another time, I don't remember at which time each of them were in my life, Keith Gildow. They were both marvelous people. They both knew my personality to a T. So in the early days, prior to the internet and all this stuff, boxes of cassettes came in for me to listen to. Part of the way I did my job was Tony and I investigated music magazines from all across the United States, London, Germany, Toronto, Montreal, and we got all those publications. And Tony knew stylistically what I liked listening to, everything from singer-songwriters to heavy metal, and we just started clipping music sections of newspapers and magazines out of everything we acquired. And, we'd look at stuff and go, oh, this sounds really interesting. And we'd call people just out of the blue. And it was all very innocent and all very like a trial and error, cut and paste, I don't know. And that's the beginning of how I did my job. Now, for almost that 22, 23, 24 years, I did listen to lots of music. And in listening to lots of music, there's a lot of rotten stuff, but you can't be unkind to people. So a lot of those not so good cassettes or independent vinyl, we take out a form letter back. Basically a thank you. It's not for me or Elektra Records, but good luck with whatever you do. And then there are very few that are great, because there was a lot of good music, but you can't sign good. If you signed good, you'd be in a pile of good artists. You'd be spending the company's money to the nth degree, and it's just not how it works. You can't sign good, so you got to deal with great. Thank God I innately put my finger on the pulse of what was great. And once I knew what I had to do as an A&R person, I don't know. It all wound up just working out beautifully for me.
So
did I answer your question, or did I go on for too long?
No, I love that. I mean, I love being able to get that insight into it, and just like instead of just the standard answer, just like going in depth like that. I absolutely love it when you go into it like that.
Okay.
So, with that in mind, I mean, obviously, with being able to find the music that is worthy of being on Elektra and music that you enjoy, what was that like for you to be able to start going to shows again? I mean, did you feel like you had to be in business mode all the time, or were you able to shut it off and actually enjoy the show?
Well, that's a really good question because I was always a fan, and so I went out as a fan. And everyone knew I was an executive at Elektra Records. And I just, from an early teenager, 15, 16, I never stopped going to shows. But now it was on a professional level that I had to go see artists all the time. And it was always fun. It was always great. It was always a drunken affair. And yeah, I don't know where else to go with this answer. It was just always wonderful because I loved artists, I loved music, and I loved live performances. And that's why you and I are talking right now.
Oh, absolutely. So again, thinking about that, I mean, obviously from going into the 70s and, being a part of seeing all these great acts, going into CBGBs and everything that was going forward, what was it like to see the musical evolution that was going on between the 70s and then going into the 90s?
Sure. It obviously was all very different. In the 70s, I was constantly at CBGB. It was my home away from home. I got to hear an incredibly diverse group of artists in their very early form. The Ramones, Television, Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, Patti Smith, like I said, then the British invasion of bands came over. It was extraordinary. It was enlightening. And it was like I said earlier, it was a wide variety of music that I was getting to experience. And then, the 80s came along, and there were all kinds of hard rock and metal bands. I never gravitated towards the hair bands that were more pop-oriented. For some reason, I always loved my music heavy. I loved the noise. I loved the attitude. So, like when all these Sunset Boulevard, the Sunset Strip type bands on the West Coast were starting to happen, it did nothing for me whatsoever. I was loving the down and dirty stuff, or the stuff that was even more thought-provoking, like a Voivod, like a Creator. And as we move forward a little bit, like, Metallica and a Megadeth and definitely Slayer, one of my all-time favorite bands. So it was just extraordinary because I had to be out there as a professional, and as a fan, I always wanted to be out there. So the two things merged beautifully. And what I had to learn to do was to make art and commerce work because, part of being a Time Warner, of course, is the bottom line. And you have to sell records. And I was very determined to do a great job and to sell records. So it was extraordinary, from the 70s to the 90s, what was going on. And like I said, most of the time I was listening to hard rock and heavy metal, although in the interim of all that, I wouldn't call Public Image Limited, John Lydon's band, hard rock or heavy metal. They were hard, they were alternative, they were different, and he always had a point of view, and I just thought he was one of the more extraordinary characters in rock and roll. I love John. And at one point, I was assigned to work with Tracy Chapman. Our chairman signed her. He didn't have time to A&R any records, so I got appointed Tracy. And it was a wonderful experience working with this singer-songwriter who had so many songs inside of her that she needed to get out. And she made that extraordinary first album that had that song Fast Car on it. I think I talk about that record in my book a little, so that's really all I should say about that right now.
Oh yeah, and I was just about to bring up that part too about how you got with Tracy Chapman on there too. But again, it's just like I mentioned in the beginning, I love the fact that you were able to work with someone like Tracy Chapman and work with Metallica, and just like showing off all these different kinds of music. So when you were doing the A&R work for these different types of musicians, did you notice anything at all about like the professionalism from like a metal band compared to like a soul singer to pop or anything like that?
Well, of course, the approach is very different whether I'm talking to James Hetfield or Tracy or John Lydon or Cyndi Lauper, and I had to, I just kind of knew how to navigate each type of artist. And it takes a lot. But because I loved such a wide variety of artists, I just kind of knew how to talk to each of those artists so that they understood me, and that we would have always have a great dialogue about music.
Oh, and again, that's incredible, and I love the fact that you were able to adapt so quickly with all these different types of musicians, because people are so different, and approaching them
Sure.
differently is so important to be able to get on their good side, make sure that you understand those connections that are going on, and the fact that you're able to pick it up like that and learning it on the job as well too. I mean, that's just incredible to hear.
Well, I paid attention. Like I said, I was a sponge, and everything, it just wound up working out beautifully.
Oh, absolutely. So, to change it up a little bit, I mean,
Sure.
obviously, there's a lot of ground to cover when it comes to music, but I also love the fact that you were able to go from the excess that can happen in the music industry, and you were able to reinvigorate yourself and become a better person on the other side. I mean, I always find when a story like that happens, when you are having those troubles in any way, I mean, be it substance, be it mental health, be it anything that's going on, just being able to go from those moments and, change your life for the better. I mean, when you're looking back on that and you tell those stories, I mean, be it in the documentary, be it in the book, or to other people, I mean, what's it like to look back on that and see where you are now?
Well, it's very interesting. I'm glad and I'm grateful that I had all those experiences, some of them good, not so good. It was always fun going out drinking with all the guys in metal bands, but drinking and drugging only works to a point. And then when you have an addictive personality, at some point it just turns on you. And that's exactly what happened. I drank and drugged to excess, and it turned on me. And at some point I knew I had to get clean and sober. I got clean and sober originally at 32 years old, but I only went to rehab in Minneapolis because my boss asked me to, or he was going to fire me. Now, I had my dream job, but I was acting up, and I was rude, and I was a no-show, and I worked for a big organization, Time Warner, and they couldn't have that. So I did go to rehab. I went to a 30-day program in Hazleton in Minnesota, and when I came out, I still had a bad attitude because they told me I had to stop drinking. And never mind that, I still had to go out every night, and everybody was drinking, and everybody put out their corporate card. So it was a struggle, and I remained what they called dry for 8 years. So from 32 to 40, I didn't drink, but I had a bad attitude still about things. But I was showing up, and I was doing my job. I was just unhappy because I didn't learn anything. Like when they said, when you're out of the 30-day program, you need to start going to a 12-step meeting. You need to fix your life. And I just didn't listen. So at 40 years old, somebody asked me if I wanted to drink, and I said yes. From 40 to 47 were the worst years of my life. I wound up in jail. I wound up in crack dens in New Orleans and don't know how I got there. I wound up in St. Vincent's Hospital on numerous occasions because I thought my heart was going to stop. And you know what? None of that kept me from stopping. I was HIV positive. I was taking my HIV medications with vodka. Doctors definitely don't recommend that. So one day, finally, I was like a walking zombie, and I said to myself, I got to stop right this minute. I was 47 years old. I decided, I don't know how I decided. I was in a fog. I was a zombie, and I went to a 12-step meeting, and it just took. I understood why people were going to these meetings, because they were sick and tired of themselves, and they wanted a new life. And I didn't know I wanted a new life. I just didn't want the old life anymore. So I started going to 12-step meetings, and I listened to people in the room. And all those people in the room were there for the same reason. They wanted a new life. And so we're coming up on 13 years that I'm clean and sober. I wouldn't have it any other way. When you're clean and sober, you wind up showing up. You show up for yourself. You show up for your friends and family. You become a responsible person again. And that responsible person, people know they can rely on you. you. So I still go to my 12-step meeting every day, Monday to Friday at 9 o'clock in the morning. That sets after I wake up, I make my bed, I have my tea, I say my serenity prayer, I have a list of thank yous that I write down every day, and I head off to the meeting. Once I'm home at 10 a.m., 10:30, I feel like I can tackle the world because I've learned so much going to these meetings and listening to other people who have struggled but don't want to struggle like that anymore, period.
Oh, again, that is just simply incredible, everything that you've went through. And now going on here, oh, of course. And just seeing now coming up on 13 years being able to be sober and being able to keep that mentality going. I mean, it's incredible to see that because there's so many other people that either never find that reason to be able to be sober or change their life for the better. And you actually were able to. You found it yourself to do that, and you made the changes, and you were able to go to the AA meetings and being able to do 12-step and all of these things. And, you know, it's just, it's so important because it takes yourself to want to make that change. And it was so great to see.
Well, that initial step is asking for help. And even though I had a bit of shame and fear about it, I knew that if I asked for help, I was going to get it. And I got it. And then after that, I just have to leave it up to God and the universe and the 12-step room that I'm in. And I've listened a lot and I've shared a lot. And, you know, when you have that kind of camaraderie in a room like that, because we're all there for the same reason, you listen, you learn, and you grow from just those experiences. So you could take those experiences out into the world and just be a better person, you know? And for me, you know, I've always loved people. So, you know, I show up for my entire life. I show up, you know, my mom passed 2 years ago, but I showed up for her life when she was dying. I show up every day for my sister when she wants and needs me and wants to go somewhere together, because she's the only person I have in my family anymore on my mom's side is my sister. So, you know, like I said, your life just changes when you go into recovery and know that you want it. And I don't know, like, you know, I remember seeing a mural on a wall down in Soho, and it was about 6 feet high, and it was like if you were in school and you were writing on a chalkboard, because the only thing it said on the mural was, I can do anything. And it just said that about 30 times. So I took a picture of it. It kind of became a mantra for me, and I do believe that. I could do anything. Now, sometimes anything doesn't happen the way you want it to happen, but you know what? A version of that happens. And like, you know, there was that Rolling Stones song, you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need. And that's the absolute truth. You may not get exactly what you want that you've been asking for, but a version of that can happen for you. And that version was probably the only thing you needed anyway. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for all the experiences that I've had, because it's kind of made me a better person.
Oh, again, I find that so truly inspiring, and I'm able to
thank you so much.
Oh, of course. And I'm able to translate a bit of that into my own life. I mean, when I was growing up, I wanted nothing more to be in a band and be able to tour and make music, but you know, through different life changes and things like that, I'm on the other side. I'm talking to bands now. I'm interviewing bands and being able to talk to you about like this. And you know, it's like I'm not in a band, and I haven't been in a band in quite a long time, even though I still try to play drums when I have the chance. But I still get to be a part of music. I still get to show off these great bands that I care about, these great artists, these great people involved in music, and just being able to tell their stories, being able to share their music, their struggles, everything that's going through them, and just show that good music and good people are out there. So just like you were mentioning there, you know, it's just like, it's not what I thought that I wanted, but I'm so grateful to have it now.
Oh, that's wonderful. Sure.
Yeah, and you know, again, just you know, hearing that now, and you know, with yourself now, I mean, going through the other side of recovery, and you know, looking at your life now, I mean, what is life like for you now? I mean, on this side of recovery, I mean, when you do wake up and you do your morning routines, I mean, what's it like to live in your world right now?
Well, let's see. like I said, I get up every day, I make my bed, I have my tea, I go to my 12-step meeting, and because of the success of the movie, I'm always talking to people all over the world about a lot of those issues, about music, about addiction and recovery, and sometimes health issues, and if they're suffering. And, I don't really give advice. I just let people know what my experience had been and how I changed my life. And now that the book is coming out, the release date is March 25th, I get to talk to people like you. So, like today, I'm going to probably do 4 interviews. So that's what my day is like these days, just doing interviews. And now, unfortunately, since we're dealing with this coronavirus, I'm not doing any in-person meetings or signings, readings at the moment. But I'm sure all this will pass. So we just have to listen to our health professionals out there and keep your hands clean. And just, we all just hope for the best for all of us.
Oh, yes. And yeah, I was going to bring that up towards the end, too. It's just like it's very sad to see that those meet and greets were unfortunately at least postponed, be able to.
Yes, postponed. That's right.
Yeah, and just it's amazing the way that this just came over in the last week, and just seeing all of these bands that were going to be on tour or on tour, they had to drop everything they were doing and go back to their respective homes and just have to wait this all out. I mean, it's incredible to see what's going on in the world right now.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy, but it's very, very serious, as we know. We're learning about this virus every day as we go on. There's a great doctor, Anthony Fauci. I've known about him for about 40 years. He's an extraordinary doctor, and he just knows about everything. So when he talks, I listen.
Yeah, and that is what's so important, too. I mean, when you find those people that actually know what they're talking about when it comes to something like this, and you're able to find them like Fossey, being able to, like studying up on something like this and knowing what's going to be best for us. I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate right now that we do have to stay inside and avoid human contact and all of these different things, but if we can come out on the other side, we're going to be so much more grateful.
Well, that's what we hope. When we do come out on the other side, maybe we'll be a greater, kinder person from all of this, hoping that humanity... my brain just stopped. We can just cut that part out. I guess all I'm saying is that once we get past this virus and we know what it is and how health professionals are dealing with it, maybe that scare will help us all be better people to each other, period.
Oh, that would be incredible if that does happen. I mean, I know I'm much more fortunate about my life right now because of all these things that are going on, because...
Well, it's wonderful.
Because I know there's people out there with autoimmune problems that are scared for their lives right now, just in case they come into contact with anyone with that going on. And, it's actually my nephew is one of them as well. He has cystic fibrosis, and I'm scared for him every day, where if he gets that, there's a very good chance that he could die if the second he gets it. So, it's just like, I know there's many people out there with all of that, and I'm so much more grateful for my life now, because, again, when we come through this on the other side and we're able to reestablish things and go about our world the way that we used to, hopefully, like you said, it's all for the better and we all become better people.
One would hope, for sure. Yes.
So trying to bring things back a little bit musically, of course, when you were a part of Elektra Records and so many great bands that we know today, what do you think of music nowadays? I mean, do you still check out new music, or do you just listen to
I go out all the time. I'm still not a fan of top 40 music, but I know there's a great big world out there that loves that. I still love my music harder. Recently, a year ago, I heard about a band from South Florida called Ether Coven, and a cousin of mine said my next door neighbor has a son. Like, I haven't heard that for 30 years, and he's in a band. I heard their record, and it happened to be extraordinary. It was an independent release called There Is Nothing Left for Me Here. It was bombastic. It was majestic. It was brutal. So I heard the music. I went down to see them in Florida. I liked them, and I said, I'm going to help you out. So I helped them out. got him a deal with Century Media. Their new record just came out called Everything is Temporary Except Suffering. We got Eric Rattan from Morbid Angel to produce the album, and that was my little share in helping a band get on a label. So yeah, I'm always out there. I'm always listening to new things, and it's my life. That's not going to end going to hear new music.
With that in mind, I mean, with the attachment that you have to Metallica, I mean, so much with
Sure.
it being on your book. I mean, what was it like when you discovered a band like Metallica and they were so fast, so heavy at the time, and then the more extreme metal started to come out, like the black metal, the death metal, the grindcore? What was your take on that?
I have to wrap this up, I think, soon, because I think I've missed my 5:30, but I didn't hear anybody call. Anyway, not to be rude or anything.
Oh, sure.
Well, you know what? When I heard Metallica, it was in '82. I was still at the Ritz. I went to Lemoore in Brooklyn with my friend Phil Cavano. He is in Monster Magnet, but he wasn't in Monster Magnet then. He was in a little band called Shrapnel, and we freaked out. Because remember, Metallica were doing something that was so different. They were combining British heavy metal, traditional hard rock, speed, and I would dare to say a little bit of punk in this one thing that they made Metallica and that they made their very own. Nobody else was doing that. Fast forward to 1983, I see them at the Stone in San Francisco. They blew my mind. I thought James was a ringleader. He was an incredible frontman, incredible charm, incredible charisma, and I thought, love these guys. I give Lars my business card, and I know that they're on a little label called Megaforce, but in my heart, I believed that Megaforce were an incredibly creative label, but they were totally independent and didn't have the funds to take them where I could take them at Time Warner. So in summer of 1984, they were part of a triple-act bill with Raven and Anthrax. They played Roseland on West 52nd Street, and that was the night that changed everything. That night, Raven got signed to Atlantic, Anthrax got signed to Island Records, and I signed Metallica. Now that signing, well, prior to that, so Megaforce were not happy with me, but our business affairs talked to their business affairs. A financial deal was struck, and everybody walked away happy. Now, that signing really changed the face of hard rock and heavy metal. At that point, all the other A&R people wanted their own version of Metallica. That wasn't going to happen, because something like that doesn't happen too often. But there were other great bands coming out in that time period as well. So, I always knew from the get-go that they were going to be huge, and we supported them at Elektra to their rise. I don't know what else to tell you. The rest is history. I've said it millions of times in my book and in my movie, and it was just an extraordinary signing, and it put me on the map as well. And that's why we're talking again today.